Ethereum is suffering from unlimited token inflation caused by its guaranteed staking yield. Today, I'll explain the changes that Ethereum needs to make to secure its value going forward. Let's get right into it. So Ethereum's developers have been discussing reducing staking yield rewards progressively as the total percentage of staked Ether increases. The Ethereum Improvement Proposal 8363 would dictate that as the staking ratio continues to increase, the Ethereum staking yield would eventually go to zero. Why? To stop Ethereum's unlimited token inflation. Ethereum rewards validators and stakers with newly minted Ether to compensate them for securing the network. However, no matter how much of the total ETH supply is staked, whether it's 50% or even 100%, the current protocol will continue to mint new tokens to reward them with a staking yield no less than 1.5%. This graph shows it completely. The blue line being the current issuance curve and the orange line being the proposed issuance curve under the EIP 8363. As you can see, as the staking ratio increases to 20%, for the orange curve with the tapered issuance burn update, the issuance starts to trend down as the stake ratio increases past that 20%. Eventually, at a 50% stake ratio, the staking yield goes to zero. So validators and stakers get nothing. While the blue curve, which is the current protocol's issuance rate, the staking yield goes towards the minimum of 1.5%, which is the floor, no matter what the staking ratio is. So even up to 100%, the annual issuance keeps growing. This is not good for Ethereum. Let me explain. So this is not the exact amount, but let's say Ethereum has a 50% staking ratio, which is around 60 million ETH staked. At 1.5%, that's inflation of 900,000 new ETH per year. If 120 million ETH is staked and that staking ratio goes to 100%, that means the annual inflation would now be 1.8 million new ETH per year. And this would grow indefinitely as more ETH continues to get minted and staked. On the other hand, this proposed solution balances the security of the network while limiting the prospect of unlimited inflation if the staking ratio continues to rise. And today we know that the ETH staking ratio is around 34%, and that percentage is actually expected to rise in the coming years. So there is a clear reason why this type of proposal was needed. Now, some are saying this proposed change by Ethereum developers is bad because it would limit institutional interests, it would centralize staking, or other reasons. While this could have some unintended consequences, the real reasons that most of these loudest voices are coming out against this change is actually because it could hurt them financially, not that it's for the overall health of the Ethereum blockchain. Many of the biggest Ethereum treasury companies or digital asset treasury companies depend on ETH staking to generate revenue. Companies like BitMine, SharpLink, and BitDigital are making millions each year in ETH staking rewards, and they don't want that to go away. This also includes ETFs by money managers. For example, Fidelity is launching its own Ethereum ETF that does staking. Now, what's interesting is that Fidelity and its business partners will retain 15% of the ETH staking rewards, but give back 85% to the investors. Now that 15% sounds small, but if an ETF has billions in assets under management, they are easily making millions to tens of millions in staking income as assets continue to grow. So these companies, whether digital asset treasury companies, ETFs, or money managers, all have a very important monetary incentive that Ethereum keeps providing staking rewards. It's income for them, but is it best for token holders? Let's take a deeper look at the potential deflationary impact from this tapered issuance burn proposal. At today's stake ratio of around 34% or around 42 million ETH, the newly minted ETH for validators and stakers is around 2,900 per day. Some of that is burned, but not a lot. A few hundred go to base fees and even less go to blob fees for the L2 networks like Polygon or Arbitrum. So that's going to be around 2,400 to 2,900 new ETH added each day to the total supply. Now let's look at the tapered issuance burn of the EIP 8363. Today, with a stake ratio of around 34%, that total issuance after the taper is around 1,200 ETH per day instead of the 2,900 currently. And the total net inflation per day for ETH is estimated at around 700 to 1,200 ETH per day. Now, if that stake ratio goes to 50%, which is now forecasted to happen by 2028, then you would normally have 3,000 new ETH minted each and every day under the current protocol. Big inflation. But with the tapered issuance burn, if the stake ratio makes it to 50%, the ETH would have 0 new minted tokens each day and be completely deflationary, with that deflation coming from the base and block fee burns. Now, it's important to know that a 50% stake ratio, if this proposal was passed, will likely not happen. Why? Because as the staking ratio continues to rise past that 20%, the staking yield goes down, and less people will probably keep staking for less and less yield. But nonetheless, this shows that if you want a more deflationary token, this proposal makes sense. Also, the second reason that's being ignored, especially by those who talk about institutional adoption without looking at the actual utility demands of ETH, is that today, everyone needs less ETH to transact. In 2020, the average ETH fee per transaction, or gas per transaction, was 0.00806. Later, due to L2s and technical updates, by 2026 year to date, the average transaction fee is now 0.0001. This is almost a 99% drop in the amount of ETH that is needed to transact on the network. So even if you get millions and millions of more users and transactions per day double or quadruple, people just don't need as much ETH as they used to transact, which lowers the demand for ETH. Now, that doesn't mean people won't still use ETH for DeFi or other things, but make no mistake, ETH's core utility as a token has been gas for transactions. If someone is looking for an inflation hedge, for example, they go for Bitcoin, not Ethereum. If people or businesses want to sell items online or sell real estate or cars, due to the volatility of Ethereum, I think more will prefer USD stablecoins as payment rather than ETH itself. So what's the angle? Ethereum currently has unlimited token inflation, no matter how much ETH is staked. The protocol guarantees a floor of 1.5% in an annual issuance in perpetuity. At the same time, the average cost of ETH per transaction continues to trend down, lessening the demand for ETH's token. Focus on the fundamentals. Supply is going up with unlimited inflation, and demand is going down with lower transaction costs. While the approval of this proposal is not necessarily imminent, the supply-demand mismatch was enough to catch the attention of multiple Ethereum developers, to the point that this proposal was actually presented. This is a problem that Ethereum will one day have to solve, whether it's in the near term or whether further in the future. But these are my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, believe it has some valuable insights, hit the subscribe button, turn on those notifications, and I'll see you next time.